Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Explorations of Brilliances. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Lee, with a PhD in finance. Today, we are venturing into a narrative that weaves the threads of entrepreneurial spirit, unwavering curiosity, and the quest for holistic success. It's my distinct honor to introduce a titan of industry and a connoisseur of life, Scott Wainwright. Scott's odyssey began shortly after high school with a present foray into real estate that saw him not only build but sell his first homes, an earlier testament to his acumen and foresight. This venture blossomed into the Heritage Companies, a beacon of innovation and excellence in the construction and real estate domains. Under his stewardship, Heritage has not only weathered economic storms, but thrived, expanding into a distressed investment division that stands as the bulwark of strategic triumph. In 2015, Scott turned his gaze to a potential of the express exterior car wash model, leading to the inception of the WOW Car Wash brand. This brand, much like its creator, is characterized by an unyielding dedication to excellence, which is why it is no surprise that it has been voted the #1 car wash in Las Vegas continuously from 2019 to 2022. I think they will this year again in 2023. Beyond his business ventures, Scott embodies a Renaissance man in the modern era. A fluent Spanish speaker, a missionary with a heart for service, a Tony Robbins Platinum Partners Lion Mastermind member, an adept of advanced meditation with Dr. Joe Dispenza, an ultra marathon runner, and a fearless explorer of Vibra Vision. Scott not only pilots his own plane sometimes, but also coaches others in the art of Olympic lifting. His life is a testament to the belief that our pursuits, whether personal or professional, are not just paths we walk, but horizons we expand. So as we sit down with the man himself, a chief curiosity officer with a net worth in the hundreds of millions, yet a demeanor as approachable as any, we seek to uncover not just the secrets of his success, but the essence of his life's philosophy. Without further ado, Scott, welcome to the show. And thank you for joining us to share your story and inspire our path.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. That doesn't sound like me you're talking about when I hear all of those great things, but it's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you. Yes. I do remember the first time we met, yes, which I believe was the first time we met. We were on a bus getting ready to go to a financial event through the Tony Robbins Platinum Partners. And I remember seeing you and I'm like, who in the world is this specimen of physical, almost like a robot? Like, this guy was so fit and strong, and you just had this really amazing presence about you. And I was really attracted to you. I was like, man, I want to talk to this guy and figure out what he's doing, because I want to do whatever he's doing. And that I would say that philosophy embodies my life, but also I do just remember being really impressed with you. And on the bus we had visited, and you spoke about all the different programs that you were in as far as disciplining the mind and the body and the spirit. I was just blown away. I'm like, I need to get to know this guy better. So it's been really fun to be on this journey with you over the last couple of years and to witness you integrating these things that you told me about so long ago and continuing to expand them. And you continue to be this sort of a superhuman that everybody looks up to and admires, and you become this role model for so many of us. It's a pleasure to be here. It's great to talk to you.
You're so kind. Thank you for your kind words, Scott. I remember, yes, we met on the shuttle to the Platinum Financial in Sun Valley in 2020. That's right before the entire world was shut down for an extended period of time, right? Yeah, I remember I was attracted to your energy as well. And we were talking about businesses and personal lives on the bus next to each other. It just happened that we have the same first name, Scott and Scott. Right? that was interesting as well. I remember you showing me this huge spreadsheet, right? With the font size that I cannot even read. I had to look really close. I was like, oh my God, Scott has everything in his life, personally, professionally, in a spreadsheet and managed so well. And then there's no surprise later on when during the event, when you stood up and shared with everybody your future goals and you want to get a bigger plane, everybody was like, oh, I know, because this man has everything down to the details and he's managing, and you are doing an excellent job. Such an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. Those were great days.
Okay, Scott. So after high school, you swiftly transitioned into the role of an entrepreneur by building and selling homes. Could you share with us the drive and inspiration behind that early start?
Yeah, I think that I would answer that question differently now than I would have answered it maybe 5 or 10 years ago. One of the things is I was raised with a really solid work ethic. My dad just worked really hard. My mom probably would have argued when we were being raised that it was too hard because didn't spend a lot of time with the family, was so focused on work. But yet it did instill a really solid work ethic in me. That was fortunate to be able to have that. And I would say from a psychological aspect, how a person always wants to feel loved and to know you're enough. And I tend to feel that my dad was so focused on his career that I wasn't maybe getting that sort of type of feedback to the degree I wanted. I think he was in his own way, but it was not to the degree I wanted it. And so that was always a driver for me to try to do good and to be outstanding, to try to receive that kind of praise. I think that was probably a really big driver. Now, looking back, I can see where there was intrinsic weaknesses built into that, but also maybe from an external perspective, over the years, as I've been self-reflecting in different things, I'm able to hone that, understand it, and hone that maybe for the greater good. Use that same drive instead of compensating for some insecurity or some inadequacy. I'm able to see the true need of those around me and use that same drive to fuel the needs of others and to the benefit of others. It seemed like it was an intrinsic drive inside of me. So,
yes. Yes, I think you shared with us the inspiration of how you started this journey, building and selling homes.
Yeah, to me, the education, I just didn't understand it. Like I never did good all through school. My only motivation for getting C's in school was to not get in trouble by my parents. Like if I could get C's, then they would be happy. It was just trying not to get D's and F's, which I did. And at times I had to go beg my teachers not to give me an F, and they would feel so bad for me, they'd give me a D, which would keep me from getting too in trouble. But I just never did good in school because it just didn't make sense to me. Looking back now, I realized that there was memorizing things and then repeating them. It didn't spark anything inside of me that made me want to do that. And I think a lot of kids these days, that's probably part of the issue with school is just trying to memorize things and repeat them without a sense of connectivity to the underlying result or what it truly is going to achieve. I was never able to make that connection. So I never did good in school. But as a matter of fact, I remember in 7th grade, our teacher was telling us about, she said that, okay, on like August 7th, we're going to have some event. And I remember sitting there going with zero context to August 7th. Like I didn't know when August 7th was. And of course, most of the rest of the class knew that it was like in a month and a half. So I asked somebody, I was like, when is that? And they said, what do you mean? They go, it's August 7th. And I go, well, how do you know how far it is from now? And they said, it's, June, July, August. Unfortunately, my teacher heard me and she said, Scott, what month are we in? I said, I don't know. And I think it was July or something. She goes, well, what's next month? And I said, I don't know. And she said, okay. She goes, what's the first month of the year? And I go, I don't know. And she said, how many months are in the year? And all my little friends, my little 7th grade friends are behind me. They're signaling. They're going like this and this. And I go, I'm like 5 and then 2 and 10. And she was like blown away. And they were trying to help me out. And she couldn't believe that I didn't know the months of the year in seventh grade. Honestly, I didn't even know what month my birthday was in. But to me, it was more of, it just didn't matter. It just wasn't important for me to occupy my time and my energy with something that at that time seemed really irrelevant. Fortunately, I've learned it since then. But I think that was my perspective going through all of school. It was like, if it's not connecting me to something that I can feel this result, then I had no motivation for it. That's what I would say. The only motivation was maybe the rod, I would say, that I could get from my parents. And so that drove me to get a C, but nothing else. One of the things I didn't realize until looking back now is I grew up on a farm, and so we were out in the country. And one of the things I used to love was going out after school and just sitting. Like, even as a kid, like I would go out to this one place in this pasture. I'd walk through our orchard, cross this creek, and then I would go sit out in this, it was a cow pasture. And there was this one point I would go sit on. And I just remember sitting there, and I had my dog with me. And sometimes I would take my rifle as an excuse so my parents didn't think I was weird. I'd say, oh, I'm going to go out hunting or whatever. But I would just go and I would sit quietly. And I just remember feeling this sense of a greater presence. I just knew there was something greater than myself. And I remember watching the animals like a hawk. Basically, what I was doing, and I didn't know it at the time, I was meditating. I was just going within and getting quiet. It was like I was separating from all of the external noise and just getting to know myself without knowing what I was doing. I just remembered it felt really good, and it felt really satisfying to just sit in silence and do that. So I would do that frequently, like throughout the week, and I really looked forward to it. The way that relates to what I believe has been a series of what people call successes in the external sense.
Okay.
I was developing my intuition. And what I have learned is that really, I think there's a lot of different ways people can do it, but one of the ways to develop your own internal intuition is by separating from the external. So it's really directing the power of the mind inwardly towards the center instead of just letting it fly off randomly, abstractly into the external sensual world. You could say it takes work. It's not easy. Your nature resists it because it's not easy. But I think consistently going within, even at a young age and not understanding what I was doing, that sort of develops a resistance, and it causes a reaction that you can't see. It's invisible, but it manifests itself in the visible 3D world. So I think this played a big role in my life, and I'm still working on it. And now that I'm aware of it, I'm even more working on developing it in a greater sense. I would argue that most of the ones that have achieved some size financial success, and I don't consider myself at all in the league with any of them, but I would argue that if you were to drill into their history and their practices and the different things that, even if they are aware of it, you would be able to identify these periods when they would go within and that develop that internal intuition. I don't know about Warren Buffett, but I'm assuming that he's able to separate all the noise of the news and just tap into this internal intuitive sense and get a feel for kind of his next move or his next investment. I could guarantee you that it comes from some type of internal stillness, some intuition. Yeah, so I think that relates to sort of the first things I did in business. My first job, I moved down to Los Angeles and I worked as an iron worker for some construction company. I had zero experience, but I quickly was elevated above a lot of people that had been in that industry for a long time. I think just because of that intuition, I would stay really aware of what the needs of the organization were. And I started filling gaps that nobody else was filling. People were standing around waiting to be told what to do. And I would just see a need and I would fill it. And that constant filling, I quickly got promoted, managing a team of people that we would erect the structural steel for these high-rise buildings. So pretty good soon I got put over a whole team, and it was that. And then I was working for this guy and I was like, wait a minute, why am I working for this guy when I could be doing this myself? That's when I started. I had some savings and I went and bought a home site and I started building a home. And again, I think that was a bit of an intuition because I evaluated the housing market in my limited awareness and ability at that time. I was in my early 20s, probably 21, 22 maybe. And I didn't go to college either. I tried going to Chico State. And again, I just couldn't find the connectivity to my passion through it. And I know it's different with people like you've got your PhD in finance. There definitely are ways that people can make that connection to their passion. I just wasn't able to. So when I saw an opportunity in the home building world, I just saw a niche that there were people needing to buy homes were selling. So I went and built a home, did most of the work with my own hands, and it was a slow process, but sold it, did it again, did that several times. And then I was able to, just through networking and relationships and people seeing that a person has a good drive, they wanted to partner with me. And so we were able to develop a home building business that ultimately we were able to scale, and we were delivering a home a day.
Wow.
Yeah, which in our language is like 250 homes a year. But yeah, that was all driven by that. I think that very beginning, that intuitive sense of just connecting, seeing needs, and just filling the gap, that maybe making a little bit of an extra effort that other people weren't willing to make. I was stretching myself beyond what I was being paid for. But that was recognized. Even if it hadn't been recognized, it exercised a muscle inside of me that allowed me to continue to push beyond maybe the expectations or limitations of anybody else and do it myself.
Wow. That's amazing. I think you are an embodiment of Eckhart Tolle's teaching, The Power of Now, and Joe Dispenza's teaching, developing a divergent focus while be able to come back to the convergent focus when you want to focus something. And also I remember Dr. Wayne Dyer's book published decades ago about manifesting your destiny. Everything he said in the book, you are actually doing it. And I think based on your experience, just my personal perspective, you were born as a leader. As saying leader means that you were born as an independent thinker. You would see what frames work around you when you get in touch with them, but you would evaluate whether those frameworks make sense to you, or would help you to establish this connection that you feel with the universal intelligence more to help you have more fulfillment on this life journey.
Very true. Absolutely. That's interesting you state it that way, because I do find myself constantly evaluating people and their perspectives as it applies or influences me. It's not that I'm making an outward judgment about them or their character, but as it influences me, I constantly am evaluating and saying, okay, do I believe that? And is it beneficial to me, or is it going to be harmful to me? I think that sort of diligent awareness of this has come from probably being burned a few times, where I did lend my, you could say, future to the decisions of someone else, just assuming, because, and I can say I had a big insecurity. I always have, because I wasn't educated. In the beginning, I would tend to look to people that had educations because I felt like they're smarter, they know more, they went to school. I quickly realized that's not necessarily true. Not to give credence specifically to an education or a title or a certificate, but to evaluate it for the merits as they resonate inside of me. I still feel like pretty much everybody is smarter and knows more than I do. But I also think that's an opportunity, because it keeps me from limiting my thinking to myself. I always look at everybody else and I think, I'm sure they've had experiences that I haven't had. They probably know things I haven't had. So I would say it keeps me open to learning, but also having that constant evaluation of, am I going to allow this to influence my future? Am I going to trust them? Maybe that would be the thing, to the point that I have to weigh the risks. Do I trust this? Am I going to put myself out there to the point that it could have some impact from a risk perspective on me, either personally or my character or whatever? So then that sort of allows me to regulate and then observe. It's okay, maybe I do think that they know something, or they have something, or they are something, but I'm not willing to put myself out there, but I'm going to remain in the observation state. And over time, I'll know. But then also I would say that from way back when I was a kid, that kind of going inside and developing that intuitive sense gives me a pretty good read right away on things, even from a business perspective. The pro forma might say one thing. And you've got all of these Harvard graduates and these equity guys that are out there promoting certain things and saying, hey, this is absolutely the way we need to go. I still balance that with my intuition that is outside of the spreadsheet. And a lot of times I'm just like, no, guys, this is not good. And on the flip side, there's a lot of things that I discover and I float out there to some of these people and it gets shot down. And they're like, it doesn't make sense. We're looking at it through this financial lens, or through this equation that we've proven to be successful on Wall Street or whatever. They'll say, no, this doesn't work. But intuitively, I can feel like that it does. Because obviously it's impossible to capture every variable in a formula, right? On a spreadsheet, in a formula, it's impossible. There's certain things that aren't emphasized or identified as being significant, yet from the gut level, I can say, wait a minute, this is going to significantly influence the rest of the equation, but it's, for whatever reason, it's not being calculated right now into the equation. So I just learned to trust myself on that. And I'm like, okay, I know this is going to work. How do I go about establishing this or proving this? And a lot of times it takes you outside of the traditional methods of growing and scaling businesses. You just have to bootstrap some things sometimes.
Yeah.
In ways, just put things together. Surround yourself with people that can see your vision or trust you and willing to support you.
Yeah, this reminds me of what one speaker who had cosmetic, she shared that after tons of rejection, and this one time she was in San Francisco, and a group of investors rejected her ideas again and told her right in her face, saying, hey, I don't think people would buy cosmetics from people who look like you, because she's a little bit overweight and it doesn't look like a supermodel. At that time, she said that she had this deep feeling in her stomach, just at the moment, a deep feeling, a knowing that people are going to buy from her.
100, yeah.
That knowing, she said, trumps everything. And then she grew that brand to hundreds of $millions and acquired by L'Oreal.
Okay.
And they acquired her business, and then they hired her as their new CEO.
Wow. Amazing.
Because how? Yeah. And then, like I said, what she was doing, using her own money and stuff with her husband, it doesn't make any sense on pro forma.
Right.
But
that's an amazing story. Yeah. The fact that it doesn't make sense from a historical track record perspective is sometimes identifies an opportunity, right? Because once everybody starts doing the same thing, it becomes efficient. When you get in there at the beginning, you can take the home flipping thing. I started flipping homes in 2009. Nobody was doing it. Everybody was running away from real estate. So it was really inefficient. Nobody was buying. There was a lot of opportunities. Margins were big. It was messy, but it was fast moving. But then the more players, the BlackRocks or whoever that get involved, margins start going down. It becomes a machine that's very efficient. And it also has a track record of historical success, so that then investment dollars are being willing to put into it. But it's that messy area where they doesn't have a hit, like the express car wash. When I got into it, it was like everybody told me, including a lot of my, what I would consider mentors, had told me, hey, this is not a good thing to get into, but I had that gut feel. I just knew intuitively this is a huge opportunity. But it wasn't efficient. It was really messy. Now that's trending more towards efficiency as the capital markets are getting involved and they're applying their formulas to the success. And there's a lot of benefit in that. But that's not where I thrive. I don't enjoy once things become efficient and formulaic and systematized. I find myself like back in school where I'm getting really distracted and I'm daydreaming and I have no motivation and interest. So I think that's one of the things that drives me to constantly find new opportunities. As a matter of fact, I just found another opportunity that is phenomenal. I can't say anything about it, but it's another one of these things that nobody's seeing. It's almost like it's in plain sight, but because everybody's looking for the success that has happened in the past, they're not putting the pieces together. They're not going outside of that and into the sort of creativity and imagination and putting the pieces together that can create the new future success. Love it.
Yes. Okay. So Scott, you established a profound connection with South America through your missionary work. How has that experience influenced your approach to business and life?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I do feel like that was influential from a humanitarian perspective, maybe the soul side of just getting involved with and like living with people that they didn't have the opportunity that we have from a material perspective. So I guess that was one thing that it really helped me realize that, and by living with people and getting to know the culture, I realized I'm no different than they are. Like there was absolutely no difference in me from them. It's the external environment that may be different, but from an internal perspective, our needs and our wants and our desires and what we love, what we don't love, we're all the same. Like what we're looking for. We're looking for that connectivity. We're looking for that community. We're looking for love. And I would say that was probably really significant to me. Just realizing that the entire earth is humanity with the same needs. We have external differences. I guess it was humbling. Maybe I would say that just to realize that I am no different than anybody. And I think that way that translated to is even life back in the United States is I'm no different than anybody, this homeless person or the president. Or so I would say it helped strip out ego.
Yes.
Not that I don't have ego, I definitely have ego, and I'm still working on that, but it definitely helped strip out that ego that tends to try to elevate you above other people and create that hierarchy. So I think that the way that has translated to my success is, if you want to call it success from a materialistic standpoint, is I don't feel like anything I've achieved or anything I own is actually mine. I feel no ownership of it because I see other people that are just the same as me that don't have it. And I'm able to say they don't have it because they don't have the opportunities. But I'm still the same person as they are. Maybe that lack of attachment to success keeps me driven by my true passion, which is more just discovery, adventure, and curiosity, and community, helping people. So I would say those things, that lack of attachment to success is just realizing that anything that's achieved is not mine or not me. I just don't feel like I own anything or I have anything or I am anything. And we're all the same. I think I focus more on that drive to create and that sort of imaginative perspective.
Okay. So what do you define as true success? I think you mentioned certain aspects of that as well. I think this is very important because you mentioned it's internal versus external, and we are all looking for that connections, and we all the same. And I agree with you 100% on that. We all have the potentials to become whoever, whatever we want to be. It's just a matter of how we approach that, right? So I'm curious that in your own words, what would you define as true success, and how do you see yourself continuing to strive for it?
Yeah, I would consider success it can be identified by a feeling of true satisfaction and true fulfillment, which comes through, I believe, through connecting and contribution. Because even with one of my current businesses that is doing really well, I've recognized that the amount of revenue it generates or the amount of EBITDA that we realize, I don't get that feeling, this internal feeling of fulfillment. I do get it when I'm out visiting with team members and they thank me for the opportunity to have worked there. And they tell me how in some of our training where we go beyond just the aspects that deal with the business, but they go into more of a interpersonal and they focus on community and just personal development. And they thank me or thank us for that. And then they tell us how it's affected their family and how it's given them opportunity that they never thought they would have had to grow and achieve things that they never thought they would have had to. Those are the type of things that give me that feeling. And so that's how I identify success. It's a bit, I know that's a little bit nebulous, but it's that journey of continuing to identify how that feeling can be created. The more successful the business is, obviously the influence that it has on people is greater. As long as, for me, I think success would be not becoming so focused on the financial perspective, but more focusing on the human perspective and the community and the developing others and that people growing and learning and really sharing that feeling with them, allowing them to be able to have that feeling, which then they can contribute to other people. And one of our brand pillars is community. We do a lot of charity work. We do a lot of different things. But what I find is even more effective is the way that we affect individuals and the way I treat them with the humility and respect and genuine love and care. Then that's translated to the other team members that maybe they're managers of, which is translated to our guests. If our guests can come in and have an experience at one of our businesses and they feel good, they get that good feeling inside of them, and then they can take it to their business or their home where they're talking to anybody. And those things are imperceptible, but they have a massive impact, I believe, on the greater good. Yeah, it's incalculable, the exponential effect that I think those little incremental things have on all of humanity, really. And even from if a person were to go more metaphysical, like you could say from an energetic standpoint, that kind of energy that maybe you're not necessarily impacting somebody with your words, just having that kind of a presence elevates a frequency in your like energetic body that absolutely has an effect on people and things and around you. And a lot of that ties back into even manifesting, right? Like people talk about manifesting all the time. If you create that type of vibration and that frequency, that energy that's full of gratitude, full of love, full of appreciation, full of humility, then those are high vibrations. And those things are going to automatically be your environment you're surrounded with, whether that's translated as financial success or social success from relationships. I really believe in that, just continuing to raise that vibration by being aware of that internal feeling. And to me, that would be success.
Yeah, that's amazing, Scott. I think that not many people actually find this, what I would call the universal intelligence, right? The connection. You shared a lot of true wisdom here regarding success and how people can see it. Because usually in life, people learn, just like typical my journey from the middle-class family. We were taught to just go to school because that's one way to success, right? Because you can go work because you don't have resources. For example, my family didn't have resources, right? So I need to go work for someone first to acquire certain financial resources, then be able to save, invest, and eventually become free, right? Sure. Yeah. From funding heritage homes to launching the successful WOW Carwash brand, what pivotal moments defined your journey? I think you already touched on some of this stuff. I still would like to ask this question to see whether you want to share any highlights on this journey?
Yeah, I do think that one aspect that has continued to be reinforced, and I did touch on it a little bit, but is I think everything's about balance, right? It's yin and yang, and most of the time we're not in balance. So it's getting to that equilibrium. And sometimes we're on this side, sometimes we're on this side. And obviously, as a basic need, I do search for financial success out of survival. And I would say there's times when that does get maybe overweighted. I'll get so focused on that, but then it feels pivotal to me the moments that if that's the yin, that the yang comes into play, and it's the people side, and this hyper focus over here gets balanced by conversations, by being impacted by people, by seeing people learn and grow, and understanding that the success of the business is having on people, and just being able to step back again and go, oh yeah, this is what it's all about. And it seems like that's continued to happen throughout my career, that I'll get imbalanced and then it'll rebalance. And every time I get rebalanced, it's almost like I understand it in a deeper, greater way. So you can almost say this constantly rebalancing of maybe understanding the spiritual side of life keeps getting deeper and more fulfilling and stronger. But it's through that becoming imbalanced initially. Finance, so success or whatever, maybe feeding the ego with all of my insecurities, going, I need to appear successful, or I'm not as educated, therefore I need to prove myself, and all of these things. Then that rebalancing happens, and it allows you to step back and appreciate. And then it fills you with gratitude, and it fills you with thankfulness, and it makes you want to contribute. And then maybe you get off balance again. So I would say those are pivotal moments. I'm sure I could think of some more practical moments. One of the things I would say is surrounding yourself with people that are better than yourself. As an entrepreneur, maybe I pride myself with the guy that comes up with this idea, or I see this thing. But what I've always found out, and I always get like the legs taken out from under me, is I don't run businesses well. And from a sort of a holistic perspective of being able to see all aspects, from the finance side, the accounting, the HR side. I'm not good with systems. I'll create that initial thrust. And then very quickly, I realize that I can't do it. Like, I can't take it from here to here. I would say one of the pivotal things that I've really learned, which was hard for me because it's hard for me to delegate, but I learned that I've got to get people in that are better than me. As much as my ego doesn't like it, as much as my pride doesn't like it. And a lot of times, these people, because they don't see the world the way I do, they oppose me. And that can be pretty difficult. But so it's like when you hire somebody and they're actually opposing you and telling you you're wrong and telling you you're not good, what I've learned to almost embrace that. Like, now I like that. At the beginning, it was really difficult for me, and I'd want to fire people. But then I realized that what they're providing is so valuable, and it's everything that I don't have and that I need and that the organization needs, that I just swallow my pride and I'm like, okay, I'm wrong. You go at it. And invariably, it's proven to be the thing that has allowed us to continue to scale and grow and achieve things that we wouldn't have. So I always am constantly having to learn to step back and trust other people.
That reminds me of when I was working for IBM on global operations. We went to a 1-month training, 22 days from 9 to 5 was all trainings from different departments and directors flying in from all around the world. I remember this director from Australia. She came and she said that, remember, you are hired here to perform a certain task, to complete a certain task. You are not hired to come here to have everybody like you.
Great point. Yeah.
So that kind of created this culture within IBM where people just striving for professionalism to get the task done. I think that's similar to what you described. To run a successful business, I think there are certain kind of formulas out there I've learned in the past, which means that you got to hire people who do not have the same opinions and not like you to run a successful business.
Right. Maybe it's better to say people that have different skill sets, different than mine, that can do what I can't do. And that's not always easy on the ego, but if you're able to step back and see the greater good and understand that internal feeling, it makes it a lot easier than you just, because then you want to see them successful and you want to see them thrive. So you put people in the positions that they absolutely thrive in. And that is massively rewarding to me. So, which makes it to where you are happy to step back, really, and to step down, you could say, and out of the spotlight and let them thrive.
So I want to continue our conversation with the innovation and the industry insights you have. So the WOW Carwash has been recognized as the #1 car wash in Las Vegas continuously from 2019 to 2022. And you touched on this a little bit. What do you believe that sets your brand apart in such a competitive market?
Yeah. When we set out to do this, we evaluated, spent a lot of time evaluating competition and people that are doing things in the car wash industry. And I would say one of the things that set us apart from the very beginning is when I was starting to build homes, I realized that I wasn't competing against other home builders. I was competing against Walt Disney. I was competing against Microsoft. I'm competing against everybody that has the attention of my customers. And so I think a lot of people get into an industry or focus on a segment and they have the mindset that they'll set the bar at where everybody else in that same segment or industry has set the bar, but without realizing that the people that they're trying to receive the business from are actually experiencing marketing from the hyper blue chip companies of the world. And if you're a tire repair shop, the tendency, I think, is to put soap operas on in the lounge to keep the place dirty. But if people can just realize that, no, that's, the opportunity is to create an environment that makes people feel the way Disney makes them feel, the way that Microsoft's making them feel, the way. And so I started the car wash business like we have other businesses. It was with that in mind. It's like, I'm not looking at other competitors within this industry. I'm looking beyond that at the apples and seeing how are they appealing to people? What kind of a feeling are people getting from experiencing their services? And it's okay. Now, then you have to practically translate that to your own business. Is how can our guest service attendants, when they greet a guest for the first time, we want them to smile. We want them to have this bubbly, outgoing personality. We want them to make the people feel that they're being listened to, that their needs are being met to the best of our abilities. And we approach things from that perspective. Is from a C-suite, the executive level, we treat our team members that way. Then they're going to treat our guests that way. Then our guests are going to tell other people about the business. And I would say then the other thing that kind of translates to all of them, one of the big things for us is brand consistency, is just making sure that experience from a aesthetic perspective, from even a brand look and feel, and to the way that you externalize your presence on social media or any other marketing platforms, the way that you express yourself, to make sure that when people see whatever you have out there that they see, they can immediately tie it back to that experience they had, which is ultimately our brand. So brand consistency is really important. And the community engagement is really just making people know that, hey, it's not all about finances for us, that we really are impacting. Our passion is to create the greatest amount of impact, but also with no margin, there's no mission. So you can't go give everything away and expect to influence people. Yeah, I would say that those are the core tenets.
Okay. That's amazing, because that reminds me of Texas Roadhouse is one of my favorite restaurants. It's a casual family restaurant, and the food is great and the service is great. I remember last time I was going there, probably last year, I noticed this little sign on one of the walls close to the entrance. It's from the CEO. It says that we are a people company first. We just happen to serve steaks.
Exactly. That is a great way to put it. Yeah.
I love it. Creating a wow experience
Right.
for the customers. I think that the WOW Car Wash brand just embodies everything you just said. It's amazing.
Sure. Yeah.
Another company of yours, Scott, Siteology. Can you share what Siteology is and how Siteology embodies your ethos of creativity, energy, and expertise? And how does it reflect in your day-to-day operations?
Yeah. We saw a need in the car wash space. There was a lot of acquisition going on, and a lot of capital was pouring into this segment. A lot of, you could call them individual operations, were being bought up by, say, this private equity, and they were consolidating. And we could see that as this acquisition model was starting to dry up to a degree, that people were going to have to turn to what we call greenfield or development. So as the need turned to greenfield, a lot of these equity groups and capital related entities, they don't know development, and especially development at scale. When I say development, I mean from site identification to acquisition to entitlements to permitting to building to infrastructure to ultimately having it a successfully opened location. So a lot of them don't know that process, and especially when these groups are wanting to do multi-site and multi-state, it's hard to get any kind of a consistency at that deep level of the development. So my brother-in-law and I, Todd, we saw this need out there that people were going to start needing development services, and they didn't know it yet, but we could see out the windshield like 2 years in advance. We were like, man, in 2 years, people are going to need this service. Let's position ourselves now and get the platform established to where when the demand hits, we'll be the first ones ready to go. And so that's what we did. And it's been working out fantastic. As a matter of fact, so early on, we hired some fantastic industry and out of industry experts, and we assimilated this just phenomenal team of people. When that need hit, then what it also did is we had created this platform to address a specific need that we had identified. But what it's turned into is, because we get connected with these groups, these national groups, then they say, can you help us with this? Can you help us with this? Can you help us with this? So it has morphed into a completely different animal than what we had initially thought it was going to do. And it's just so much better. We're working with several national groups now that are really outside of the car wash, but it's related to development. We're hiring people as fast as we can to help us address these needs, but it's been really phenomenal. So it's basically a development platform that's morphing into a service platform. Whatever people's needs are related to development and service, including our expertise in the car wash industry. So we infuse all of that together. So we've just created this whole new platform that really nobody else is doing. There's not another organization out there that does development and has a level of expertise and can provide the areas that they need service in to the degree we have. So it's been fun. It's constantly changing and constantly growing. And we're working with great people.
Yeah, I went to the website. I love the website. The workflows your team shared on the website made me feel it's like a one-stop service platform for investment groups. I don't know whether that's an accurate description.
Absolutely. Like those capital groups that are getting into the industry, they start to flounder when they realize that they're going to have to identify sites, take this thing from the ground up. So it is a one-stop shop. They can come to us, they can say, hey, this is what we want our focus to be. This is the type of product we want to produce. And then we can help them from all aspects, from a geographical, macro perspective, location identification, all the way through to creating this asset that produces revenue.
Yes. So Scott, with a net worth in the hundreds of millions, what advice would you give to our listeners about achieving financial success while maintaining personal well-being?
Yeah, like I said, it's a balance for me. Like I'm always discovering that balance again. I'll find myself a little bit weighted off to the one side and needing to bring it back in. But I would say that the main thing that I find is the more time I can spend inside, the more truly successful I am, whether that's reflected externally through your finances or whatever. And I think it will be, because the more a person does that, the less attached we become to outward results, which kind of attracts results. It sounds a little backwards, but it actually is the very thing that allows growth. To me, it seems like when a person gets so focused on the external, on the outside, say if you've got a goal to be successful and you're putting all of your energy into whatever that identification of external success looks like, that's going to absorb all of your energy. And when a true opportunity comes along that may not look like that, because you're so focused on this area, you're not going to, first of all, identify it, which I believe the curiosity piece comes in. And then the second of all, you won't have any energy to put towards it. So I think the more time I spend just meditating, contemplating, working on myself from just creating more awareness, realizing, oh, this is driven from an insecurity. This is driven from my ego. This is not serving anybody or anything in a greater way that is going to leave any kind of a legacy. The quicker I can identify those and let go of those things, I've realized there's a direct correlation with success, financial success.
Yeah, this is across societies and cultures. Many people want to be successful, right? There are a lot of books written on how to be successful from successful people and not successful people. I agree with 100% what you said, because when people, they tend to pursue success, what they're really thinking about is, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but I feel like many people ask this question in life. They say, how do I become successful? But what they are really asking, whether they're aware or not, they're actually asking themselves, how can I become, or how can I look, or how can I appear to be successful?
Right. Yep.
That's not the question to get them to become successful, because becoming successful means that you become success within, and success will follow you.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like they're looking for fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
And if they think this thing out there represents fulfillment to them, once they say they do achieve that, there's still that anything outside of us can't bring us internal fulfillment or satisfaction. So I think that people go from one success to the other success to the other success without ever truly experiencing that fulfillment or that true success.
Yes.
That makes sense. So to be aware, that thing somebody said, know thyself. And I think that truly is where a person begins to enter the pathway of fulfillment and true success, because you're spending the time not focusing on the external, but on the internal. And yeah,
it's not really difficult to appear to be successful. You can have millions of dollars, $100 million. You can be a billionaire. I will quote one of the things that Tony Robbins said, that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Right.
So you can have millions and billions of dollars in your account, but if you're not happy, then that person's probably not successful.
100%. Yeah, that was well said. I think as the further I go, the more I discover that, which causes a person just to do those things that truly do produce that wonderful feeling of fulfillment.
Okay. So Scott, you're a biohacker at heart. At least I feel so, because we've been on this biohacking journey for a while together. We attended all 3 levels of vibration together, and some of the Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation retreat. So how has this journey in biohacking, or how has this journey into self-optimization influenced your business philosophy?
Oh man, in really big ways. This whole journey with, first of all, VibraVision. You actually introduced me to VibraVision, and I went only because I'm super curious. I didn't believe anything about it. I was super skeptical. I just assumed that it was a big hoax. But thank you for introducing me to it. And then you and I went there, and it was just one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. From the perspective of just an aha moment of wow, and also from an internal awakening perspective. And then, of course, we went to Dr. Joe after that. I would say there's just so many things that changed because of that, which have led to other things that have influenced business and life philosophy. First of all, it's created this awareness of my intuition so that I would say I'm more present, but I'm also more present with my own self. And when I meet people or I see an opportunity or I evaluate something, I can a lot quicker rely on my intuition to guide me as to whether we should do it or not, or tweak it or go a different direction. As opposed to before, I was relying a lot on external, I thought I was anyways, relying a lot on external confirmations. So now I would say these things have really helped me gain a lot of trust and confidence in my own internal, intuitive senses, which I make big decisions now based on that. It's like with VibraVision, from the outside, people look at it. Even I've tried to get my nephews and people to go take it, and they won't because they're like, what practical application does finding a beanbag while blindfolded have? But what they don't understand, and what I understood that very first time we went there, that this has implications way beyond any type of sensational experience like that. That the implications are really becoming aware of yourself, which in turn immediately allows you to identify if something's aligned energetically with you externally or not. And you could say from business, from an opportunity or relationships or whatever. Yeah, it's both Dr. Joe and VibraVision have just exponentially created that awareness in me that I apply now to everything. I don't even think about it now. I'm just so in tune with it now that it just happens. So business, people, life. Yeah, so I could say I probably wouldn't be able to quantify the impact that it's had. And I continue to delve into that side of life. You could call it the more spiritual side. Is to me, I just realize the significance of it. And even when I'm hiring people now, I'll feel their energy. And immediately I know, okay, we're hiring them. Before they'll even start to answer interview questions or tell us about themselves, I can just sense their energies now through developing these senses and just know, okay, this person's a fit, this person's not, this will.
Yeah, I sense people's energy when I meet them for the first time as well.
Right.
Their name, their background, their age doesn't matter. I don't remember those things, but I remember their energy signature always.
Right.
After the first time I met them.
Amazing.
As a certified CrossFit coach and a private pilot, how do you balance the pursuit of diverse interests with the demands of running multiple businesses?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have a bit of a hard time with that. I find that I'm able to make time for things that I'm passionate about. And so if it's just something that I'm wanting to do, but I don't feel really passionate about, I find that I just don't do it. But for instance, like working out. So I worked out this morning. I didn't feel like I had time, but I'm so passionate about it in a lot of different levels, just because I know it's going to keep me healthy. I've got this long-term perspective. I want to be healthy for other people. So I did it. And then flying, I actually just flew my plane back from California yesterday. And it probably would have been easier to just jump on a commercial flight and you don't have to maintain your certifications and ratings, but it's just, I'm passionate about it. It's always so fascinating to me to think that a person can actually be up in the air flying. The whole concept
Yes.
just is mind blowing. And I love it. Yeah, it pushes you and it continues to force you to develop yourself and your thinking and awareness and all of that.
Yeah, you inspired me big time in terms of flying.
Really?
My goal is to get my private pilot license before the end of 2024.
Oh, good. Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Right.
You'll love it. I love it.
Yes. Scott, looking ahead, what emerging trends or technologies are you excited about, and how might they shape your future endeavors?
Future technologies, I would say AI.
Yes.
I actually just bought these AI shoes. They were actually, you recommended them to me. They're super cool. These shoes you strap on your feet and they sense when you're taking a step, so you can walk really fast.
Yeah, like G.I. Joe, right? That movie.
Yeah. I would say AI to me is fascinating and intriguing. And I use it a lot, like as much as I can. And I think that I'm really excited about the potentials and that it's going to offer. I don't really know it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are versed a lot more in it. I find it really exciting to just from a curiosity standpoint to just see where this can go and what it can do. So that's one of the things I'm really excited about. Also, I'm excited about the human technology, just us understanding that our ability for wisdom, it's not just inside of here, it's here, like it's everywhere. Everything is interconnected. And I'm excited about developing the empathic or metaphysical aspects because I've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's true. You can remote view, you can connect to people energetically and experience things. So I don't know if that would be considered technology, but I love diving into that realm and understanding those and learning about it and growing in that way too.
Wonderful. As we wrap up, Scott, what words of wisdom could you offer to someone who is at the crossroads of their personal and professional life?
I would say constantly go inside. Don't become so attached to the external noise around you that because what happens is people get so attached to the news, to the media, to whatever external stimulus, and that begins to define them. And ultimately, that will define their success. They will never become more successful than the frequency of those things around them. By continually going inside and understanding who you are, like that know thyself. I think that's probably the most important thing. Then is to just separate from that stuff. You can rise above it. Then instead of allowing that to define who you are, you define what you want the external to look like. That goes a lot to Dr. Joe stuff. And I would say the second thing would be stay curious, right? Don't just assume that what you're looking at or what maybe even like a business, like to say, if you find that you something inside of you says, hey, I should look further into this business. Don't just assume that the business is what, because there's always aspects of it that aren't being clarified or made very apparent, but some of those things could be a key opportunity to understanding it in a way that nobody else understands, seeing opportunities that nobody else is seeing. So I think going inside, stay curious, and love people. And maybe the biggest thing is stay in the heart, operate from the heart, see from the heart, instead of seeing from the mind that really is going to be fueled by fear. It's just go into the heart. The Native Americans had a practice that I learned years ago that I could say has been massively beneficial to me. And they would actually feel their consciousness. They would imagine their consciousness going down through their throat, through into this sort of sacred area of the heart. And then they would experience life from that. And I would say that's maybe been one of the most impactful is instead of being ruled by fears or what everybody else thinks is go into the heart and live from there.
So finally, for our audience who are equally passionate about exploration beyond common beliefs, what advice would you give to ignite that spark of curiosity within them that would help them?
Okay, for me, it's approaching life with a sense of adventure. And that sparks curiosity. Like you can't help it. When you wake up in the day and you're just so excited about whatever opportunity is out there, and knowing that you don't know what that opportunity is going to be, that makes you really curious because you don't have any expectations. You just know it's going to be great, whatever it is. I think that people setting expectations a lot can squelch curiosity because it doesn't leave them open to experiencing something that they never had imagined before and is better than anything they could have imagined. Yeah, I think approaching life with just from the perspective of a child and a sense of adventure.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I think you and I are the biggest kids out there. Remember, we went to Vibravision and we suggested, you and I had this idea that we're going to talk to the chief trainer, mastermind, say, hey, we want to break the iron bars. That was not part of the curriculum, right? And we insisted on doing that, and they actually allowed us to do it. It was an amazing experience in breaking iron bars by hand.
That's right. And nobody else, I actually wouldn't have thought of that, but I'm glad you did. Nobody else would have thought of that. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just like having that curiosity of a child and then that adventure. Yeah. It leads you to so many great things.
Yes. Scott, it has been an enlightening hour. Your journey is a testament to the power of curiosity, innovation, and resilience. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experiences with us today. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Lee. Until next time, follow your passion and live strong.
Always great to talk to you, Scott. That was fun.